What's up? Welcome to the unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 119, and I am Adam Choit. To follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. Just search Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on YouTube to follow and subscribe there. If you're watching, you are already there. So like I was saying, definitely subscribe. I appreciate that. I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me. And positive reviews on Apple Podcasts are definitely appreciated. For everything about the show, though, just check out TedeschiTrucksPodcast.com. That forwards directly to my link tree with all sorts of links for the show, the social media, ways to watch, ways to listen, and a bunch of links as well to TTB's official website, a link to join their fan club, and all sorts of other stuff as well. AdamChoit.com for all my personal stuff and social media and all that as well. So today we are going to recap the Jeff Beck Tribute show in London, England at Royal Albert Hall. It took place on May 22nd and 23rd, and I am lucky to be joined by Paul Rothstein. I hope it's Rothstein and not Stein. We'll get that sorted out when he joins. He's actually from New York and flew overseas with his wife for the show, which is an incredible thing and an incredible experience, I'm sure, that he's going to tell us all about. So I won't ramble on too much longer, and I think we should just get started. So without further ado, let's bring in Paul.
Dude, you're from New York. You know it's Stein. You did it right.
I thought so, but some people are. Have you ever met any Rothstein? There's Rothsteins.
Everybody I've ever met has pronounced it Stein. But yeah, I've met Rothsteins. Okay.
I said Stein first, didn't I?
You did. You're good.
I gotta trust my instincts.
Yeah. Anyway,
how are you? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you for taking the time, and we can just get right into it. So, we'll definitely dive into the music and some of the set lists and talk about all the guests and all that. But tell me about how you ended up going to this show. How did that all come together? And tell me about like your journey overseas, and I'll kind of give you the floor to tell me the whole story. We spoke on the phone, so I know you are good at storytelling and talking music and all that. So I'm excited to chat for sure.
Okay. I'll try not to ramble too much. But
no, do it. Please ramble.
My wife and I love to travel. It's one of our passions. We've always wanted to go to London, and she always wanted to go see someone like Paul McCartney or the Stones play in London or whatever. And then all of a sudden, this concert was announced, unfortunately, after Jeff had passed. And we were like, that seems like a good idea. And then she knew Johnny Depp was going to be there, and you already know how much in love she is with him. So we decided to book a trip to London, and the tickets went on sale. I was lucky enough to get great seats for the first night in the pre-sale that they had. And then on the general sale, I wasn't so lucky. And then an hour after they went on sale, boom, 2 gallery tickets popped up. So as we say in Deadhead Land, you're in. And I was in. So I had tickets to both nights. We're ready to go. And the only thing missing was my passport, which was in the renewal process with the U.S. government. And long story short, finally getting my congressman involved, I got my passport 2 days before we took off. So if you'd imagine the excitement of going to a show like this, seeing all these amazing performers, and then crying your eyes out because you might not be able to get on a plane, it was a really aggravating week. But we got off when took off early in the morning on Friday, took off at night on Friday, landed early in the morning Saturday, and we started our London tour. Now, I don't want to go into all the details of London tour unless you want to know them, but we did a lot of sightseeing there, which was a big part of it. We saw just about everything you can see in the 5 days that we were there, the palaces and everything. I'll just say one thing, being a lifelong New Yorker, London's the same kind of city as New York. It has 8 million people, very diverse, lots of different languages and cultures there. But boy, what a clean city. Let me tell you, it is the cleanest city.
That's not like New York.
Seen in my life. You can eat off the floor there or in the subways. But it's a great city to get around. I say go there. But going to Royal Albert Hall was always a bucket list for me. It's like seeing anybody in the great venues we have here, like Radio City, the Beacon, the Cap, Red Rocks, those types of theaters. That's what Royal Albert has meant to me. It's a destination I've always wanted to go to. And being a Beck fan and having just seen him a few times this past October, what a lineup. How could you pass this up? So we were there.
That's it's funny that you talked about your passport renewal process, because I actually traveled a little bit internationally very recently, and I did not realize that my passport had expired and it needed to be renewed. And I did not have to speak to my congressman, but there were definitely many hoops to jump through and phone calls to make and emails to be sent and passport centers to wait online at. There was a lot of stress and whatnot going along with that. So I can actually relate to the passport renewal thing for sure.
It was very aggravating. And again, it wasn't because I forgot. I mean, you have to, if you're traveling and your passport's expiring in 6 months, you have to renew it. And this trip came up as a surprise, but I still sent this stuff in. Like, I waited 3.5 months. So it was the government moving very slowly. But I'm good for the next 10 years. So that's not gonna be a problem anymore.
Since we won the Revolutionary War, we should be allowed to travel there freely. I'm making this up as I go along a little bit.
I don't disagree with that. Canada with a license, so we should be able to do that to London. But they have restrictions too there, so I guess we have to obey their rules.
Right. Tell me about the day of the show. I pulled up a picture here with you and your wife, and I'm guessing that's right outside Royal Albert Hall. I have not been to London, by the way, so this is so just to give you a heads up about that. But you're making me want to go.
This actually wasn't the day of the show. We were actually about to get on the London rock tour, where we're going to go to Abbey Road and all the famous places where musicians played. We had some old rock roadie guy, on the bus telling us everything about all these cool places, all these great musicians like Jimmy Page and Hendrix and all these guys played in London while they were growing up. Not growing up, but growing up as musicians. So we stopped here on that tour, but it would be the same picture the night of the show, and that's the outside of Royal Albert Hall. And it's just an amazingly beautiful place. I put up a couple of pictures of the inside as well. But you've seen them. They're all over, the internet. You can see tons of pictures. But just walking in there was just mind-blowing. Now, the cool thing about going into this place compared to any concert here in the States was that there's like no security. You just literally walk up there. If you had a purse, they opened it up, they looked inside, and that was it. No pat-downs, no metal detectors, any of that crazy stuff and process we go through, which is why they do doors only 45 minutes before the show, which was really, really nice if you don't feel like waiting inside for an hour and a half. So very, very light security, I guess surprising, for Europe, but they don't have the gun problem and the crazies that we do here, apparently. So that was really a nice way to get into that place.
This place was constructed, I'm looking on Wikipedia, in 1867, completed in 1871. I'm sure it's gone under some renovation since then, but that is just incredible.
No real renovation per se. It's just been updated, cleaned, right, and stuff like that. I mean, the second night I had tickets in the gallery, which is the very, very top, and it kind of circumvents the entire venue. And I had to walk up 6 flights of steps. Now, luckily, I was second in line. I had a nice teenager in front of me, and I told him, keep the pace. I made it up there and got to the spot that I wanted on the rail while I was up there. You had to walk up the steps. There was some elevators, but maybe, 1 or 2, and only 1 or 2 were working. That was it.
So you had not been here before, and you had not been had you been to London before at all?
No, this was the first time to London for both of us.
Very cool. Yeah, it sounds like a special trip even before setting foot into the venue for the show.
It was. I mean, from Buckingham Palace to Windsor Palace to Kensington to the Churchill War Rooms and everything, Abbey Road. There were just so many amazing, all the things as a kid growing up or even an adult you see and hear about. Traveling is great. We do a lot of it, and it's just great to see other cities and how people live. And they have the most amazing Chinatown I ever saw. It was like blocks long. It was really clean, lots of choices and all that stuff. So it's a very cool city. Really, really cool city.
Good stuff. Where should we?
English. That made things easy too.
That and you could understand the British English for the most part. I'm guessing it's not like Scotland.
No, no, it's
Together.
not really Wales or something. We had a tour guide who spoke Welsh, and I was like, "Whoa, that was like talking out of a toilet bowl." I never heard anything like that, and nothing negative about the Wales, but it was the funniest language I ever heard.
But it is English. It's English. They're speaking English, but it's such a thick, heavy accent and dialect. It's almost, and they have a lot of colloquialisms, I'm sure. So it makes it challenging to.
Yeah, I didn't understand anything close to English in this conversation, but it was fun.
That's funny to me. I wonder if they think that about Americans and maybe a Brooklyn accent.
When
too.
I heard my Brooklyn accent, they were like, "Oh boy, what's that?"
Did they know you were from New York? Are they able to for the most part?
Yeah, they can tell us Yanks pretty easily. They're the Brits are more laid back. They're more reserved and everything else. They'll converse with you and talk to you, and they're incredibly nice and everything. But they're just not as gregarious and as fun as people in the States. They're just more reserved.
Yeah. I have had a few conversations about the differences between American audiences and European audiences. And I guess there's some, we're speaking generally, of course, but there are some, I guess, pros and cons to that. But this looks like it was just an incredible show. And I guess this might be a good place to start, a photo of Jeff Beck's guitar here. And what we were assuming, talking about before we started recording, that this must have been signed, this guitar must have been signed after. We're looking at a picture of Jeff Beck's guitar signed by almost all the other guitar players and guests, or who were there, including Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood and Billy Gibbons, Gary Clark, Susan, Derek, and Eric Clapton and Kirk Hammett and others as well. It's like, wow, that guitar is probably worth a pretty penny.
I don't, unless they sell it for some type of charity thing. I doubt it would go to auction. I would hope it wouldn't. Something like that. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, but even with these auctions, I think a lot of the time, people who private buyers who buy these things, they donate them, or they donate they loan these memorabilia things out to museums where it can be enjoyed by the public. I feel like very few people. I guess I wouldn't know, but very few people who collect gear always keep it in their house with no one able to enjoy it except for themselves. So. That's kind of what I'm guessing. But Eric Clapton was the person who put this all together, from what I understand.
Yes, and will anybody any negativity towards Clapton, whatever, I don't care about it. I respect his lifelong work, and I think he did a great job. There were a lot of interesting discussions on the Jeff Beck groups, about people who were there, people who weren't there. My attitude is whoever was there was great. And if they weren't there, there must have been a reason. And I don't really care about what didn't happen. But these were phenomenal musicians, as much as we all love Derek and Susan, Gary Clark, Robert Randolph, John McLaughlin, they were just amazing. Their performances as well as almost all the musicians on stage. The only one that I wouldn't consider a musician per se would be, I love you, Blythe, but he could play and he can sing, but these are class A musicians, and he plays in bar bands. But Jeff really loved him. They were very, very close, and all the credit to him. I still love him as an actor. So
yeah, it was something that Eric, I'm sure, wanted to do. That's something that Jeff would want, and I know that they've played a whole bunch together over the years. Jeff Beck and Johnny Depp, and my dad actually just last year saw Jeff Beck and Johnny Depp out in Huntington on Long Island, and I seen Jeff Beck play before, so I'm lucky, in that regard. I got to see him play before he passed as well. Did Johnny Depp do any guitar solos or anything like that, or he mostly just sings a little bit?
He doesn't really solo, and actually he was very humble. He was humble on that stage with all the talent. He kind of laid back. He had that one song, his first song, that was one he did with Jeff Beck, and he did sing that himself and everything and played. But after that, he kind of just stayed in the background a lot. But so did Clapton. When Derek was out there or McLaughlin was out there, and Clapton was with them, he just stayed back. He was very humble. There was nobody was hogging that stage except for, Rod Stewart, but that was fun.
That's Rod Stewart's personality, I think, maybe more than anything. He definitely is a true front man in every sense of the word. It's all good.
My wife just walked in and she had the thing playing. So, you were talking about audiences. One of the things that blew my mind, and I know this is a big discussion amongst the Tedeschi Trucks fans about sitting and standing at shows. Now as you know, we've talked before, I'm a Deadhead. That's my passion, but I love all different types of music. I go to lots of shows, especially Tedeschi Trucks and all that. And I'm used to standing all night, and I enjoy it. Even at 67 years old, it's either I'm on the rail or wherever I am. If I have a seat, I'm standing, enjoying the music, moving around. So we get there and we're sitting, and we had 8th row seats, so we were really close and everything. And everybody around us was from different European countries, people from Poland, people from Germany, and most of them spoke English, so we're able to talk to them. And after the first song comes on, and people came out on stage, everybody stood and applauded them, and then they sat down. And Clapton came out and he played Blue Rainbow and Shape of Things and Heart Full of Soul, and it was slow and bluesy and everything. So I didn't really think anything about it. Nobody standing up. And all of a sudden, after Derek comes on, like nobody was standing. And as it turned out, nobody stood the entire show, not except for my wife during the Johnny Depp song. Okay. And she got yelled at by the guy behind her. But, I explained to him what was going on, and he took it in stride. Everybody sits all night long. The only time people got up was after a song, doing an ovation, which I did every song just so I can stretch my legs out. But I was really surprised, and it made me happier that I had gallery seats the next night, because I don't know if you could see, but if you're on this picture, all the way on the top, there's these openings, archways where you stood. And at least up there, I could stand and move. So for those of you swampers that don't like to stand during a show, Royal Albert Hall is a great place. Now, they did say that for memorial shows and tribute shows, people generally do sit. That there are times people will stand there. But I'm not going to go or not go to a concert because people don't sit or stand, believe me. But they didn't when we were there.
Yeah, I think we were talking about that, how it's kind of like the memorial show vibe at like either this place or in Europe. So between the European audiences and it being a memorial show is like the perfect storm for a for a sitting crowd. It sounds like.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
No,
I was gonna say, did you get the vibe that the fans were like great music fans? Because you could almost hear listening to back on the recordings once they sort of when people recognize a song, they start to cheer. And I did hear some of that going on. Did you get the sense that most of the people there were there because they were hardcore Jeff Beck fans or hardcore fans of any of the other musicians? Is that kind of what brought people there? Or was it just the place to be for some people? What was kind of the vibe of?
I think it was a mix.
Maybe.
I think it was a mix of everything. There were definitely a lot of hardcore Jeff Beck fans like me. But there were people that did come for other musicians that maybe they only had to travel an hour or two. If you flew overseas, you better have a really good reason, not just to see one performer or whatever. But then you have at Royal Albert Hall, there's a whole section that what they call, there's a weird name for it, but they're owned. Okay. They're like stalls where the people own them as boxes. So they have those tickets are never for sale, so those people might use them, not use them, give them to friends. So it's hard to really tell. That whole middle section around the arena with people that were there because they own these boxes. And it's like, season tickets, basically.
I was going to say that. Yeah. It's like, seat licenses, season tickets. Yep. Same
There's
kind of.
no doubt that the audience was filled with lots of people who do appreciate music. And again, Clapton, they knew what to expect. So after the first 4 songs, but then Derek came out. And this is, I had some fun here because I really felt all along that Derek is probably one of the musicians that could replicate as close as possible to the way Jeff Beck played. Now, Jeff Beck's in his own class, his own world and everything else. I'm not comparing the two, but I think Derek has that amazing capability, especially on the slide, to create sounds that Jeff Beck would create with his bar and everything else and his knobs and things like that. So when he came out, I started talking to people. I said, have you ever seen him play live? Now, a lot of people did say they heard of Tedeschi Trucks and they heard their music, but they never saw them play live. And I said, you're in for a treat, okay? And you could just tell about, I don't know, maybe a 30, 40 seconds into this, so the first song he did, the Little Brown Bird, that there was some sighs and wows and everything else coming out of people like, holy shit, okay? By the end of the song, there were a lot of fans of Derek Trucks, okay? And you could just feel the hush that came over the audience as he played, and his hands just, I like to say how his hands glide across those strings. Like I don't even think they touch them and all that. And the audience definitely picked up that this was an A-lister performer. He was not some kid off the block. He belonged on that stage as much as anybody else there, whether they played for 40, 50, 60 years or 25 or 30 years like Derek has. And then Susan comes on and she starts to sing, and people just like literally melting in their chairs. They just couldn't. We all know what her voice does. She is absolutely my favorite female vocalist on the planet right now. Although Joss Stone and Imelda May, if you ever get to see those two females sing, you should see them sing. They are incredible. But Susan, for me, has something in her voice, a soul that it just, she could sing all night to me and all that. And the audience, again, just immediately reacted, took it all in and everything else. And they really, really appreciated them. It was like almost like they were the unknowns. They've seen Robert Randolph before. They've seen, Doyle Bramwell. They've seen, everybody else that was on the stage, Nathan East, Christine. They knew these people. But Derek and Susan, they really didn't. They just did this one European tour, I think, last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yeah. So that might have been some exposure people got. So
it's such a testament to their talent, because like you were saying, there's other musicians that the audience may have been more familiar with, or bigger names like Clapton or Kirk Hammett, or even like Johnny Depp or Billy Gibbons. But then like if Derek and Susan are sort of, relative unknowns to a lot of the audience, it just goes to show how much the audience is captured just purely by the music. It's all about the music. It becomes all about the music. So it's like, that's how great Derek and Susan are, that fact that they can totally captivate people who have no idea who they are within 30 seconds of playing guitar and or singing.
I was trying to find, like, we'll never know the reason why certain people weren't there or were there or whatever. Maybe one day it'll come out in some interview or something like that. I get the feeling that Eric Clapton wanted to play with Derek Trucks. And we all know how musicians love to play with each other. I think he really wanted to be on stage with him playing. That's the feeling I got, because I was watching the interaction between the two of them during the sets that they played together. And Clapton was just enamored with him. And I think I look back to when Tedeschi Trucks first started touring as the Tedeschi Trucks Band in 2010, they opened for Jeff Beck. So that's the connection. And Jeff and Derek did play together. I have it somewhere once that they did play together. So there was a connection that tied Derek into Jeff. But I think Clapton knew Jeff, and he's probably seen Derek play before, and he's been to the States enough that he said, I want this guy on this stage. He belongs here. And he did.
I just can't imagine that, other than a musician who's like unavailable or just, unable to make it because it's across the ocean, if they're coming from the North America, like that. I feel like that would be the only reasons why, someone would not want to go to this, or not be able to go to this, is just extenuating circumstances.
Where's Tal Wickenfeld? Because she played with Beck and everything. She's on tour. She's playing with
right.
That's it. Jimmy Page, everybody, where's Jimmy Page? There's stories that he really hasn't picked up a guitar in 10 years because he has problems with his hand and everything. He might very well have been backstage there, and hanging out with everybody. Who knows? And again, I've seen many hundreds of shows, well over 1,500 shows in my life. I just appreciate what they give us. I don't worry about what wasn't there, what didn't happen. and all that, you know.
Yeah, that's a great attitude. I'm kind of the same way, because a lot of Tedeschi Trucks Band fans, and not even in like a complaining way, will have comments like, "Oh, I wish would have had a little more Derek solos, a little more of this from the band, a little more of that, a little more Allman Brothers, whatever it is." Like, people are always kind of like have some sort of complaint, you know, but not like a malicious complaint, but.
Yeah, it's sort of like wishing for a certain set list, or, you know, like you do a Dead show. Oh, they didn't play Uncle John's Band. Oh my God, you know, they cover 400 songs besides 180 that they've written. I mean, how you know, the reason you go to 50 shows a year is because you want to see every song, so you go to 50 shows. And same thing with Tedeschi Trucks. I know lots of people go to multiple shows. I'll see them 6 or 7 times this year, but I know there's people that will follow them the same way I would have followed the Grateful Dead. You know, and
tell me. We'll get back into the set and share some more pictures and all that. But tell me a little bit more about your like musical history, because I know you're a big Deadhead and a big Dead fan. Are you a musician at all yourself? Do you play any instruments or guitar or anything like that?
No, and I don't ride a motorcycle, but I have a long ponytail. No, I'm a frustrated musician. I played sax when I was very young and didn't have the time or the discipline to really learn how to play, so I never really did. I vowed that when I retire, I'm going to learn how to play guitar, but I never played a song. But I've always been around music and audio my whole life. I started working in stereo stores in Brooklyn, you know, when I was a young teenager, you know, just selling albums and stereo equipment. And then started going to concerts actually my first concert was 1970 when I saw the Doors at the Felt Forum. But 2/18/71, which is a very iconic Dead show, a friend of mine said, "Hey, my brother has an extra ticket. You want to come?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what the hell?" My mother knew the brother, so she felt it was safe. I was always scared of the drugs at a Grateful Dead show, even though I had a couple of albums, but I was only 14 and a half. So I went to the Cap, and they played Bertha for the first time, and that was the first song I ever heard, and I was on the bus. And I've spent a lifetime. I say my life is a 52-year-long Grateful Dead concert, because I've seen them, the Grateful Dead, with Jerry over 700 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I toured with them in the 70s, so I got a lot of exposure, you know, during the upstate New York shows and all of that stuff. And then in the 80s and 90s, it was so easy to see 30, 40 shows in a year between New York, Boston, Philly. So it's a great passion of mine, but it also opened up my passion for live music, because I see other bands, the Allman Brothers. I saw them a couple of hundred times in all their different incarnations. And my second favorite incarnation was the Derek Warren incarnation, because those are the two best tandem lead guitarists on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, the Dead scene has been a huge part of my life. 90% of my friends, some of them are probably listening to me now because I told them to get on this podcast and grow your audience, you know, come from going to Grateful Dead shows and all that. So it's a great passion of mine. And I, you know, again, doesn't matter what music you like. If just go see it live. Okay. It's just different. And that's why I don't go to baseball games, because I'm a Met fan and a Jet fan. I don't go to football games. I'd rather go to a concert, walk out smiling. So
we'll see how the Jets do this year. We do have a new quarterback.
Yeah.
The Mets are struggling a little bit right now.
2 years from now, we'll be saying the same thing we did when Brett Favre was our quarterback. So
no, don't say that.
Listen, after 54 years? Yeah, 54 years since we played in the Super Bowl. I don't think I'm going to see another one in my lifetime, but you know,
we're gonna do it this year. What we are is we almost like we're like prisoners. We're like what do you call it? We're being like held hostage by the franchise, a terrible franchise for so long. It's almost hard for us to believe that the Jets can be good.
Yeah, it's the owners. And my wife says to me, "Why don't you switch teams?" And she's obviously not a sports fan, doesn't understand you can't switch teams, you know. So.
I tried. I was like, in my head, I was like, I'm going to break up with the Jets. I'm going to do it. And then I couldn't. But actually, the Mets are playing the Braves right now. Derek's team, of course. The Mets are down 1-0, I see.
Of course.
But does anything jump out at you? I'll share some more pictures and we'll just have a casual conversation and go all over the place and see where it goes. But does anything jump at you from the set list? And it was the same set list from from both nights, so we can.
Yeah, it was the same set list both nights. I mean, all along I went there anticipating that Derek was going to be selected to play Freeway Jam, which because I really thought that he can play that. But Robert Randolph did on the keyboard, on the pedal steel, and he did a phenomenal job, on that. That was just really, really good. What do you call it? The Bolero was also, of course, a standout. I mean, again, there were a lot of covers and a lot of Beck songs. Songs by Elmore James, Muddy Waters. There was a lot of that. Who influences Charles Mingus, Curtis Mayfield. People who influenced Beck in some ways, but that he never really played with it. But he did cover their songs, a lot of them. The Goodbye Pork Pie Hat was really exceptional with Derek on it. That was another real treat for everybody there. Gary Clark Jr., when he played, let's see, what did he play? Oh, Let Me Love You. It was just, and Cause We Ended as Lovers, just phenomenal. I mean, he really did an amazing job. I saw him a few times at Lock-In, and I think he might have played with Phil once. I've seen too many Phil shows to remember. But I think he might have played with him, and really good guitar player. Really enjoyed him a lot.
Yeah, I saw him open for TTB. I think that was 2015 or 14 or 16. Who the hell remembers? But
even when I saw him too, opening for them. And of course, John McLaughlin. I mean, he's John McLaughlin, and he just played beautifully. It was such an amazing night because there was so many incredible musicians there. And don't get me wrong, if you've never seen Anika Niles play drums or Rhonda Smith play bass, you're missing something. They are absolutely phenomenal. They're in the Jeff Beck band, okay? And they are as badass as can be. As a matter of fact, they played the Goodbye Pork Pie Hat and with Derek near the middle of the second set, and it was just incredible. Oh, yes.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine how awesome this show is for sure. I didn't really have a chance to dive too much into the music. I know some of it has popped up on YouTube and whatnot, but of course I listened to The Sky Is Crying and Done Somebody Wrong and the Going Down finale. I was able to check out that stuff. Of course, I'm diving first for anything Derek and Susan and seeing how that goes. And it was interesting to hear them play even some of these songs at a slightly different tempo than TTB plays it, or a slightly different version. Always interesting to see them in different worlds and different contexts.
Back in October, when Jeff came here to the States and played his shows, I saw 3 shows with my wife at the Cap at Red Bank and up in Kingston. I know you said you saw the show out in Long Island. And my wife, she liked Jeff Beck, but she loves Johnny Depp. And I know I'm tired of talking about this, but if I don't show you this picture, this is in October. It's Sirius Radio. Let me try and get this way. And trying to get a good picture. No, back off.
Yeah, I got you. You can send it to me too, and I can share it. But yeah, what is it? That's you. That's your wife with.
That's my wife with Johnny Depp and Jeff Beck.
Nice.
And Jeff was just an incredibly decent, kind human being. She joked around with him because everybody was focused on Johnny Depp, and also little Stevie was there doing the interview. But it was a very cool experience for her to meet him too, and all that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll pull up some more photos here for the people who are watching. We got Derek with Ronnie Wood and Clapton. Yeah, this is night 1. You were up front.
This is night 1. Yeah, we were in the 8th row, so we were close enough to get decent pictures.
That's incredible. Did you? I'm going all that's Doyle, but I'm going all over the place. But did you when you
bring back Doyle in a second? I'm sorry, bring back Doyle and go ahead, and I'll tell you. I want to tell you something. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask actually about your Grateful Dead fandom, because like going to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows. Did you develop relationships with Jerry Garcia and the band members or anything like that?
No,
or not at all.
I mean, I have people call me and say, "Come on, don't you know Jerry?" Or I've met Phil several times. Okay, probably 4 times I met Phil. I met Bobby briefly once, but it wasn't even, I'd call a meeting or anything. You know, we were just close together. And that was pretty much the extent of it. And I'm not, you know, my wife's great for celebrity hounding. I'm not. It just wasn't my thing, you know. And I always thought about what I'm going to say to these guys if I ever met them. And when I met Phil, the first words out of my mouth is, Phil, I just want to say thank you, because that's all I can say. You know, I mean, I'm not going to talk and say, come on, let's light up a joint. You know, I thank you.
That could be the second question.
Yeah. Thank you for the years of music and everything you brought to us and everything. And he just looked at me and he said, no, thank you. And it was just an instant love fest. So no, never really. I met John Tedeschi, in St. Louis. John Kadlecek, when he was playing with them, I met him just before the further runs and all that.
No, I respect that, but I've had few conversations with some Tedeschi Trucks band fans who've been to lots and lots of shows, and I'll be like, "Have you ever like said hello to Derek or Susan after a show before?" So they're like, "No." I'm like, you should at least go up to them and say thank you for the music. I love it. I appreciate it. Like, I think at least that is you. I feel like you almost owe it to them in some ways. That, like, I know some people go at, like, even yourself, go out of your way not to bother the fans, not to be fanboy, not to do this or that. But I think it's okay and appropriate and nice to go up to them and be like, I thank you for the music. It's a big part of my life, and move on, kind of thing.
They're people. Look, Derek and Susan, as you can see, a lot of people get pictures of them. They're very approachable. You know, Bob Weir, you know, he's got a screen around him, and he's got security, and like, you can't get close to Bob. And he's very shy. He doesn't like to be out in the public, believe it or not, as a musician, but he is pretty shy.
Yeah, not that Derek is shy per se. Obviously, we're talking about how friendly they are with fans off the stage. But I do hear some fans and some people say, "How come Derek doesn't talk at a show? How come he never says anything to the fans?" And that's never really. That's true.
It's like going to a baseball game and say, how come what do you call it, Aaron Judge, you know, doesn't talk? He talks with his bat. You know, that's what you're paying to see. So
right. And that's more or less Susan's role with the band, is to introduce the band and work the crowd and be the MC in a sense, while Derek is the band leader and conducting and directing and orchestrating the musical portion, you know, on stage. So they're a great team in that regard, certainly.
No question. When you were going through this, I wanted to digress back a couple of years, because the Doyle Bramall thing reminded me. I was at Locken a few years ago, and this was the year that Tedeschi Trucks and Trey Anastasio bands were headlining the Friday, Saturday nights and everything. So on the Friday night, Derek played with Tedeschi, with Trey's band, and then on Saturday night, Trey played with Tedeschi Trucks.
Yeah, those were awesome sets. The Layla album and then the Trey before.
That's what the Doyle picture reminded me of. So on the Friday night, it was an amazing jam fest. I mean, Derek and Trey were just going at it, back and forth, jamming all night. Times Susan just walked off to the side, let them play with each other. It was just really amazing, the jamming. And I said, what are they going to do the next night? Okay. And I really, again, it's like, no preconceived notions, no expectations. I had no idea what they were going to do. Okay. And we're out there, and we're standing in it, and it's dark and everything. It's night. And they played their first set, which was, of course, another great set. And then you come out there, and Doyle Bramall walks out on stage. And if you didn't know him, you had no clue, okay? But me and my buddy were there, and like, that's Doyle Bramall. And he goes, yeah. And they started to play, of course, the first couple of songs on Layla. And tears started rolling down my eyes after the second song, because I knew they were going to play the Layla album. And it was definitely... You know, I tell people I've seen tons of shows, but in the last 10 years, the two best sets of music I saw was Tedeschi Trucks with Trey at Lock-In, and then the Mad Dogs and Englishmen set that Derek and Susan played on a couple of years before at Lock-In. They were two.
Oh, you went to the right shows.
Yeah, they were two of the most amazing, memorable sets. Now, last year, Dwayne Betts played an amazing set with Phil Lesh at the Cap that I also will never forget too. But Tedeschi Trucks at Lock-In, it just blew me away. Did both times.
I remember where I was when they were playing that Lock-In set, because I think it was live. I think on Nugs. It was live streaming on, I think, on Nugs.net, sure. Nugs.org, yeah. Nugs.com, whatever it is. And I was like in my car, I was heading to some meeting friends for dinner or drinks. And I think I remember just like sitting in my car. I'm like, oh shit, they're playing the Layla set. I was probably in tears too at that point. But I'm just like waiting. I'm in my car. I'm like supposed to go to this event, and I'm like, or this meetup, and I'm like, no, I want to watch one more song. I want to watch one more song.
Yeah, it was. I practically cried for half an hour. I mean, it was tears on and off. Don't get me wrong. It was just, and they played it so phenomenally well. There's no doubt these guys spent time in the studio working on these songs. They did not just come out here and play it for the first time.
Right, and it was so perfect that at the end, after they played Layla the song, they did Thorn Tree in the Garden. Like they just played it from, I think, the PA as people were kind of like walking out of the show. Because I guess it's impossible to follow the song Layla.
You couldn't. It was it was a really great night. So that's what Doyle reminded me of when I saw him. And he's a phenomenal guitar player as well. Doesn't get the credit or recognition he deserves a lot, but he's a really phenomenal guitar player.
And very good, great singer too, and songwriter as well. I know that he does a lot of songwriting with Derek and Susan and countless other artists. So he's just a true pro. I saw him with Clapton years ago at MSG. I've seen him. I've been lucky enough to see almost all the artists who are, or a big chunk of them who are at this show, including Gary Clark and Robert Randolph. I have not seen Rod Stewart. That was kind of on him and Santana, I remember, did a tour together a few years ago. I was like, I should have probably gone to that, because that would have been a fun one to see those two.
Well, the last time I saw Rod Stewart, I was unimpressed and said, okay, I'm kind of done with him, And I've had my ups and downs with Santana, but I haven't missed anything the last 4 or 5 Santana tours. I'm going to see him this summer. He still puts on an amazing show. I still love his music and great performer. Although the year he played with Phil at Lock-In, he was lost because Phil had Warren Haynes and Barry Sless on the stage. And Warren, of course, is Warren. I don't have to say anything. And if you don't know Barry Sless, Barry is fearless. I mean, he's a little guy. He plays a big guitar, and he's absolutely fearless. He'll play with anybody. And the two of them were jamming back and forth. And Carlos was looking at him because Carlos is not a jammer, and he just didn't know where he could fit in on the stage and looked very lost, But it was still a great show.
That's true. I guess he's usually the lead or only guitar player, the lead guitar player, and playing, I guess, his songs, or just he doesn't do a lot of Sky is Crying extended jams or whatever the case may be. Now that I think about it,
definitely not. I mean,
but such a unique style, and that's the thing that I really like about him, and even Rod Stewart and his voice, is that like when you hear Santana's tone and his guitar, it's Santana. When you hear Rod Stewart's voice, it's Rod Stewart. It's like this, and same goes for Derek's guitar playing and Susan's voice and a lot of these other musicians. Like there's talent out there, and there's a lot of talented singers, guitar players, musicians, but it's hard to be amazing and really be so iconic to the point where it's like just hearing from one note, who it is. And it makes you feel. I hear Derek play one note, and I'm like in like this whole other like universe. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that was the thing about Jeff Beck, was that no one played like him, even, and again, I'm not going to get into the argument who is the greatest guitar player ever, be him or Hendrix or whatever, for years I would say Hendrix, but, Beck outlived him by about 40 years. So it's hard to say that, Dwayne Allman was one of the greatest guitarists, but he died so young. So it's like, he wasn't around as long. And when Beck died, the accolades that came out from the other top guitarists in the music industry was incredible. I mean, every single one of them had something amazing to say about Jeff Beck. He just had he was probably the most respected guitar player on the planet from other musicians.
I believe it. Yeah. This is a cool picture you got right here. This must have been night 2 when you were up above
the gallery. Yes,
Yeah, we got a bird's eye look down at just Derek and Eric playing guitars and just being focused and in the moment. And I really like this photo. I might use this for something. I may
have
a filter on it.
You have my permission. I don't want royalties or anything.
Turn it to black and white. You see Eric's got, I guess those are probably Eric's pedals behind, and then of course Derek has got no pedals, and he's playing a Les Paul there.
And Eric's got his trendy black sneakers with white on the bottom.
It's funny. I was gonna say it's funny because, like, in some regard, without even like thinking about it, my dad is his favorite of all time is Eric Clapton. Like, bar none. He's seen Eric Clapton in every single one of his incarnations and owns every single one of his albums and has seen him live a million times. And that's kind of how I've been with Derek. But it's funny to think of how, like, my dad kind of like dresses in somewhat similar manner to Eric, with the sneakers and the multiple bracelets and things like that. The jeans with the sneakers, and I'm more into the flannels and the boots and the things like that, like Derek. So it's funny that way we kind of like almost imitate our guitar idols, like just even a fashion standpoint. We're both crazy.
Yep, 90% of the time I'm wearing a tie-dye. I mean, anybody that knows me, they know.
Grateful, and that's a Grateful Dead thing, of course. Right?
I have some T-shirts. I have a closet with 180 T-shirts. Okay, all hanging on hangers. People have seen this, so I'm not making this up. And you saw my tape collection. I think I sent you a picture of that. But there are some bands like Allman Brothers I have, and Pink Floyd I have some T-shirts. And I have now a Jeff Beck shirt. I had to buy it when I was there, and it was the only merch that they were selling was this one T-shirt, which was really cool. And it's just like the album has all the artists on the back of it and everything. So and I forgot what I was going to say. Okay.
This is a great photo you got right here of Derek playing close up with his eyes closed, focused in the moment, playing some slide.
Yeah, I like when I get close, and this is just on my Samsung S21. It's not a camera or anything, and so it's hard. The nice thing about this thing was that there was no concert lighting for this. Everything was bright white light. I mean, you'll see some purple background that they threw in there once in a while, but mostly there were these giant overhead white. They weren't they were like floodlights, okay? And I think it might have been for the video, because they definitely took video of the entire concert. So it made it really easy to take pictures, because when they flood the stage with red and blue, you can't get a decent photograph. But here, everything was white, so it was easy to get a nice picture, especially from when I was sitting in the 8th row, whatever.
Yeah, this is super cool. I could see like some media outlets like wanting to use this photo for something. Like, it just really crisp. And,
I'm sure somebody got a better picture.
But yeah, I was digging around for some other photos, but I didn't want to just share people's who were posted in various private groups without permission.
Yeah, it's okay. You have my permission to use anything I gave you.
I appreciate that.
The second night when I was standing up there, there were a couple of other couples, one from Poland, another from the UK, and then there was this guy standing next to me, and it turned out the guy is he's a session musician, okay, and he's a drummer, and he's played with Pete Townsend. He's got a whole 250 songs on Spotify and all that. Really, really nice dude and everything. He has a great conversation, and I was talking to him about Derek. So after Derek, went off the stage, he said to me, and this was the second night, so I already knew. He said, "Does he come back?" I said, "Do you want me to spoil it for you?" I go, "Yes, he does come back." And that's when he came back and did the Pork Pie song. He was so blown away by Derek's playing. He said, "I have never seen anything like this." I said, "Well, if they tour Europe again next year, because who knows if they will, go see him. If not, come to the States. You got to see this band play live." Yeah, up there you could see the top. That's where I was the second night.
All the way at the very top here, where these arches are.
Yes, exactly. Probably a little about where you just had that cursor. Like the second one, the first one on the screen. This way I could see the full stage, because there were lots of lights and stuff hanging down that from the back they would be annoying you. So
this is such a beautiful venue, and for some reason I don't know. I think of it at Royal Albert Hall. I think of it as this huge venue, and it's spacious, but it's only I think about 5,000 or so.
Yeah,
which is not gigantic.
It's 5,300. Now the thing is, on the very top on this balcony, okay, they only sold enough tickets that like 8 or 10 people could stand in between each one of these arches. Okay. They only sold enough tickets to fill the maybe 25 or 30 arches up there. They could have had 5,000 people up there, because the floor goes back 30 feet from the edge. So it's just a big gallery, walkway that goes around the whole top. But it's flat, so you would never be able to see if you weren't.
That was my next question. As a short person, if I'm not in the front, would I be able to see? Is it inclined? Is it slow?
You're fucked. Yeah. That's why I was second in line on the general admission line and got up to my spot. As early as they did. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is a beautiful venue, and there's Jeff Beck's guitar here. This was on the stage each night at the
Before
beginning of the show.
Yeah, at the beginning of the show, when you walked in, it was just that guitar, standing there. All that, and if you never got to see him, you missed a real treat. I'm so happy I got to see him for the last time, last year. Just what he's the kind of guitar player, and people would sit at his shows mostly because you just listen to this guy play. He was just amazing. His hands, what they can do, his fingers, and how he can work the bar and those knobs simultaneously while he was picking at the strings was just a talent you just couldn't believe. And
I've never seen or heard. Sorry, I'm just saying I've never seen or heard anything quite like Jeff Beck before.
No, there wasn't. There really wasn't. Just like
there hasn't been
Jimi Hendrix or Jerry Garcia. There hasn't been anybody like them. They were all very unique.
In the Jimi Hendrix vein, it's almost like these guys do a lot of experimenting and a lot of innovative things and sounds, but neither of them really lose the melody or the bluesiness or the soul or track of the song. Like everything is really very purposeful and emotional playing, obviously with a lot of the bends and the whammies things, but just like really sometimes even like spaced, like Jimmy and Jeff Beck, a lot of spaced out type sounds and just like even Derek does that too. It's like he'll make a sound like when he's doing his slide guitar solo on Gravity. I don't know if you're familiar with that one off the top of your head, but like one of the newer ones, like really real squealy, high pitched sounds. I don't even know how he gets these sounds. Like Jimmy, Derek, and Jeff Beck, like they're able to achieve sounds that I just have not heard, and they're technically capable players, but also emotional players compared to maybe some of the other more like technical guys who know every arpeggio and can play super fast. I tend to gravitate towards the Jimi Hendrixes and the Derek Trucks of the world who have that bluesy emotional aspect of their playing and make the guitar cry essentially.
Same page as you. I mean, that's my, I feel the exact same way. Bob Weir can make some strange sounds with his rhythm guitar, let me tell you. But, I wouldn't put him in the class of guitar players as them as much as I love Bobby. So don't strike me down. But he makes some interesting sounds on his rhythm guitar playing. But yeah, Beck was just, he was just incredible. He really was. And he did stick to his blues roots and, played homage to a lot of the great blues musicians in his playing. And, it was a sound of its own. It definitely was.
Did it seem like, I think we talked a little bit about this, but at some points were the musicians more or less like deferring to Susan or Derek? It seems like they were kind of like, in some regards, standout performers of the whole event. Maybe I'm being biased or hopeful or assuming that, but like.
Okay, I'll be biased too. I thought the first night they stole the show. Now, look, for me, the first night was the better show because I was in the 8th row. It's that simple. I could see the band. I could see the interactions. Always makes it better. And the second night was the exact same show. It wasn't any different, just a different perspective for me. So the second night was equally as good as the first night was. I felt after the first night that Derek and Susan definitely stole the show. Now, again, Susan stole the show with her singing. She really didn't get to show her great guitar playing. There was one little jam she had.
A little bit, yeah.
Trading off with Derek and Clapton kind of let her go and everything. But again, the other two female vocalists that were out there, that Joss Stone and Imelda May, what voices they have too. I mean, they only did one song each. It's hard to judge, on one song, but they have unbelievable voices, the two of them. So there were a lot of great female vocalists on that stage, and male vocalists too. But the female.
Yeah, there's a shot here I'm sharing with Susan and Eric and Doyle here on stage. Susan up front with the teal Fender signed by everyone, of course. Her signature guitar. Uh-huh. Yeah, I feel like I went to the show. I feel like I was there. I feel like I got the experience, and like I said, I've only had a chance to. I know. I appreciate the fans who have, shared videos, and I almost think like the entire show is on YouTube at this point from various fans. You can almost
I think a lot of stuff. I know.
Yeah, you can almost piece together the whole thing at this point.
Yeah, I posted the first I posted actually after the show because we were 5 hours ahead. So I was able, a lot of people, and I posted on the Tedeschi truck site as well with my own personal stuff. And I'm still getting likes and thank yous, 2 weeks after the show, for some of the videos I put up and the photographs and everything. So a lot of people showed a lot of interest. It was, again, I won't say that they were the main reason I was going, but I was damn excited that they were going to be there.
Yeah, no, it would be the main reason I was going, and then everything else is great, gravy. What was I going to say? So this show, it was actually a benefit for, it says surplus income from the 2 concerts will be donated to Folly Wildlife Rescue in Tunbridge Wells, KENT. I don't think that's Kentucky. I think that's probably somewhere.
Yeah, it's a part of England.
Right. But that's cool too. I should look into that charity for anyone's listening. Folly Wildlife Rescue.
I'm going to tell you, buying tickets. Now you had to buy them through this. The lottery was a pre-sale lottery that I got in for the first show, and I got in. I got on right away. None of this ticket bastard clusterfuck or anything. And I paid £200, which is about $240 US, for the 8th row tickets. Okay, face. And then for the gallery seats, there was £70. Okay, so basically about $80 US. There's no big secondary market there. It was hard to find tickets if you wanted to go to the show. StubHub does have a UK version, and there were a few tickets there. And then there's another website I would stay away from. I won't even say their name, but they always posted they had tickets, but you could see it was a game. And I read the reviews on Google, and I never saw a company with a 1-star review with 2,000 reviews.
Stay away from that. It's not a formula for something you want to get involved in.
So it was a hard ticket to get because there was none of this BS $400 Ticketmaster whack-a-mole game going on. It was just, here's the price, and that was it. And if you're lucky to get it, you got it, and that's it.
Well, I'm happy that it worked out for you and your wife, and you had a great time and an amazing experience. While I got you, I'm just curious because you mentioned the 2 iconic lock-in shows and whatnot. But what other and some of the Grateful Dead shows? But what other, I guess, TTB shows have you? How many TTB shows have you been to?
Should I pull up my spreadsheet? I honestly, I'll say I'll go to about 4 or 5 a year. So what are we, 23, 13, 26, 50 shows, 60 shows maybe, something like that. I'm married. I have to balance things out. If I go to like 15 Phil shows and 10 Dead and Company shows and a couple of Bobby shows, I'm at 30 shows just like that. So if I start overloading with too many TTB shows or Pink Floyd's and things like that, I have to balance things out with my wife.
I see. I think what we need to do is see if we can get, well, I think this is not going to happen, but it made me think that we should get Johnny Depp to open for TTB, and then
that would be awesome.
Then your wife will be inspired to head out to more shows.
We're going to the 2 Bridgeport shows, and we're going to go to the MSG show. It'll be interesting to see not how they play there, but how many tickets they sell there, because that's a big step up. And I know they're not doing the October run. This is, I guess, the replacement, but that's a big jump from a 5,000 person venue like Radio City or Royal Albert to go to, the Garden. So
yeah, and you're going to the Madison Square Garden show.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I assume that it's
October. I got to see him.
I mean, do you have tickets for that already?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So you're all set.
It didn't conflict with Halloween, so at the Cap, so I'll be okay.
Were you familiar with? I mean, I'm probably because you're such a big music fan, or maybe not, because you come in when you come in. But were you familiar with? Well, obviously you saw Derek play with the Allman Brothers. But were you familiar with Derek even before he joined the Allman Brothers with Derek Trucks band or
I
Kid Derek?
Yeah, I can't say I was familiar with his music. I had heard it and everything. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh yeah, Derek Trucks. Wow, interesting name. But when he started playing with the Allman Brothers, I was just blown away. I mean, I've always been a lifelong Allman Brothers fan. I was fortunate enough to see Dwayne a couple of times back in the 70s and all that. I saw a lot of different incarnations of the Allman Brothers. Some were not very good. But when Derek joined the band, it was just like rejuvenated. It was just amazing to watch him and Warren. I know I've said this before. I don't know if I said it tonight, but they were the two best tandem lead guitarists that I've seen in decades, playing together. And
I think that's everybody's top two tandems is Dwayne and Dickie, and then number two is Derek and Warren, and number three is some other combination. And no knock to those other combinations, all talented musicians, but there's a reason why those, are the most iconic ones. And Derek and Warren had quite a run themselves for sure with the band.
I think 11 years that they played until
2014, right?
2014. So I forgot what year he joined them.
Is it 99 to 2014? I think it was.
Yeah, that's 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
They played together, and he just kept getting better. That was the beauty of watching Derek. Is like
he's still getting better, which is crazy to me.
Yes, I know. Like I always thought Dwayne Allman was as good as he ever was going to be. I thought Jerry Garcia was amazing in '71, and I don't know how he ever got better. And like he was he peaked. I think Derek keeps getting better. I really do.
Yeah, and I don't know how, because it's like, yeah, I can't explain it. Just you hear just new sounds, and obviously the band is putting out new material, so that's part of it too. Just as not even just as a guitar player, but as an artist, as a songwriter, as a musician, an artist with something to say with their lyrically and with their music. It's just continuing to grow, and I'm excited about what's to come from the TTB as a collective and individually. I know they're slowing down touring a little bit and maybe working on some side projects in the coming years.
They're having a whole family life.
Right.
And they're entitled to that.
Yeah.
We don't own them, and they're entitled to live life. It goes by very, very fast.
Right. And I'm kind of at the point where it's like, they put out enough material between the studio recordings and all the fan audio recordings and everything on YouTube, where like I have enough music, TTP music, to sustain me for the rest of my life if they never play another live show or put out another original album. So it's like I just appreciate everything that they've done and that they've released and all the music. And I appreciate you and your time. Is there anything else you think we should cover? I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know it's getting late on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's okay. I was just going to say that's the thing, and why I go to so many shows, because this world is very fragile with these musicians, and we just lost one of the greatest guitar players, Jeff Beck. We'll never hear that guitar played live again, and that's why I go to see live music. Baseball teams change all the time. Bands. Till everybody in that band can't play anymore, or they're no longer here, which is usually what happens. They die. They don't just stop playing. Go see them before it's too late.
And just for TTB, I agree. And for TTB, with 12 members, there's just a lot of moving parts. And they've had, obviously lineup changes over the year and suffered tragedy and lost themselves. So it's like, I always joke that my fear for TTB is that they're too talented, that all the beyond Susan and Derek, everyone else in the band is so talented. So to keep that together is going to be challenging because they're so good, not necessarily, for other reasons.
So I could say this, my young friend, okay, because I am older. I started seeing the Grateful Dead in 1971. I was fortunate enough to see Pigpen play. He died. Okay, Jerry died. Brent died. Keith died. I've seen so many incarnations of that band, from Further to the other ones, to the Dead and all that stuff, to now Dead and Company. The music keeps on going on. Keep enjoying it. Don't worry about what's going to happen or not happen and everything. Just enjoy it while it's here. But the nice thing is that as long as the fans are into it, the music will continue on some level. And Derek and Susan are fortunately pretty young now, so and compared to some of these other guys. So you got another 20 years before you have to start worrying about this crap. Okay.
Yeah. But there's so many stories like of resilience that I just think of off the top of my head. Just even, of course, the Allman Brothers reading Alan Paul's book and learning about like their various lineup changes and tragedies that they've dealt with Dwayne and Barry and all that. And it seemed nearly impossible at some points for like how the hell are you going to continue a band without these musicians? But they managed to form a whole, keep going. And and put out great music, even if it's not exactly the same as with Dwayne. And even like a band like AC/DC, when they lost like Bon Scott, like to think that AC/DC could continue with another singer, and then they put out Back in Black, which is like their most iconic, highest selling album with mega hits on it. So you just gotta appreciate whatever comes out when it comes out, for as long as it's available. And these musicians are here with us to share their music with us.
So this was fun. I enjoyed this very much. I hope our audience did. I hope they're still with us.
Oh yeah, good stuff all around. I'll have to get what is your next TTB show?
Well, no, TTB are the 2 shows in Hartford.
When are those?
I mean Bridgeport. The 7th and 8th of July, and then the October show. Tomorrow night I have Daryl Hall and Todd Rundgren at the Cap. So
very cool. Yeah. You are more than welcome to come back on and help recap TTB shows anytime you go to them. I'll try to get a group on and a whole panel and stuff, and I'll sit back and let you guys do all the work and recap it and make me feel like I was there, because that's what I'm getting out of these recaps is like I feel like I was there. I feel like I was in the last row. I feel like I was in the first row, and I've only scratched the surface in terms of listening to the songs that were there, but I've just through the conversation and what I've listened to and seeing photos of the venue, I feel like I had the experience. This really does cure my FOMO and fear of missing out, so to speak.
Thank you for that, because one of the great things, and I always say this, even about knowledge, about what I do in my business and everything, what's the point of having all this information or knowledge if you don't share it? And being able to share your musical experiences with people, because there's nothing bad about it. It's just differences of opinions. It really gives me a lot of pleasure. I mean, I love talking about the shows, the things I've done and seen. And as you can imagine, I can go on and on forever, not just about the Dead, about Pink Floyd, The Who. I mean, bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Zeppelin. I mean, I'm going to see Jason Bonham play with Warren Haynes. That's going to be an amazing show in Bridgeport too. So, yeah. Go see it.
Yeah, I'm the same way talking about music, and it's funny because I'm rambling now, but and making this longer. But I was talking to a friend who I hadn't seen in a while, and he was asking me about the Tedeschi Trucks podcast and all this stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, I know. I remember." He's like, "I remember you talking about them even before you started doing the podcast. You were talking about them all the time." I'm like, "I was." That sounds like me, but I don't remember talking to you specifically. But I must have been to every person that I meet or anyone willing to listen. Like.
It happens. I'm like that with it. But I don't, again, I just wear them on my sleeve.
So. Right there. Or on your T-shirt. But on that note, thank you again, Paul. I appreciate it.
Hey, I hope you listened and enjoyed it and all that. And I hope I made some new ones tonight. And I'll see you guys.
We're going to talk soon. We'll talk in July and we'll recap more shows.
You got it. Okay, Adam.
You got it. Talk soon.
Have a great night.
Later. You too. Bye-bye. So there you go, episode 119, recapping the Jeff Beck Tribute in London. Thank you, Paul, for sharing your experience with me. I appreciate that. Hope everyone is doing okay out there. Please check out @Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. Definitely subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. I'll be putting out an audio version of this episode. I think I did a good job of describing some of the pictures for people who might end up just listening to this episode. AdamChoit.com for all my personal stuff. Tedeschi Trucks Podcast, again, for everything related to this show. To subscribe and the social media and all that stuff. TedeschiTrucksBand.com is their official website. Definitely check that out. Buy merch, buy tickets to shows, join the Swamp Family Fan Club. I have a link to their app. Definitely download the app and join through that. But I think that's about all I got for today. I got some more stuff coming down the pipe or the pike or whatever that phrase is soon. But I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you, as always, to the band, to the crew, to Derek, to Susan, to fans, to the tapers, to the audio tapers, to the video tapers. I'm probably missing people, but again, thank you to everyone and the listeners and the watchers, and let's talk soon. Later.